Hello again, my friends. As you see, we're still on the high Alpine road, and it's time to head on back towards Germany, more precisely, towards the Nürburgring racetrack. But first, let's get back down from this mountain. As magnificent as these views are, I'm afraid I can't stay here all day. We also have yet another long drive ahead of us. We'll drive back up through Austria, across Germany towards Nürburg, and we'll also do a summary of this entire 1,300-mile journey. So if you want to know how capable an EV is on longer journeys, do stick around. Anyways, as we're now almost back to where we started, let's have a look at how much power this little joyride took from our batteries. If you watched my last episode, you may recall us leaving the charging station at 9 with 83% state of charge. So considering we just drove quite heavy-footed up and down a mountain for the past 88 kilometers, I'm going to call our consumption quite impressive. Keep in mind that just because you're recuperating power going down, it's not going to generate anywhere near the power you used going up. Not even close. Now with our route set to the Nürburgring, it's time to leave this beautiful country called Austria. Well, actually, I first needed to visit the gentleman's office at McDonald's, so let's quickly top up the batteries while we're here. 10 minutes and just 14% later, it makes no sense staying here much longer. And that's the thing about charging this car, it really makes no sense to arrive at a charging station with more than 40% battery, as charging speeds just get slower and slower the higher charge you have. It looks like we have 229 kilometers to go, and that we should arrive with 10% at our next charging station. Not bad considering we're only at 61% state of charge right now. Let's, however, enjoy the last bits of Austria before we're back in Germany again. This landscape really is something else. When I say I could drive around here all day, I really mean it. Just have a look at this. I'd also want to take this moment to briefly announce that we've launched our family brand, Fench. It's a small but growing collection of hoodies and t-shirts. If you've been enjoying our content and want to support us making these kind of videos, or maybe you're just in the market for a super comfortable hoodie, we would of course love it if you take us into consideration. Anyways, back to the video. And I'm afraid what we're seeing here are the last couple of mountains left of our Austrian adventure before we cross over the border to Germany. And here we are. 4 minutes later, we're in Germany. How sad, at least in a landscapey type of way. It does, however, also mean that we don't have any speed limits on the highway, so we can finally drive a bit faster again. And just like that, we've arrived at our next charging stop. As I didn't have anything since breakfast, I plan to enjoy my dinner with a longer charging session. Later in this video, I will make a full summary of all my charging stops for this trip, calculating the time and money spent, so we can see if electric really makes sense for longer trips like this one. I'll reveal one thing though, and that is whether or not you have destination charging is going to make a huge impact on your journey. With the car charged to 92%, it's time to fly on over to our next charging stop. It's getting late, and as I've been driving since 7 in the morning, I'm looking forward to a good night's sleep. After some speedy driving, we now arrived at what is the largest charging spot I've ever seen. And what was particularly cool about this place was that there was a huge charging lounge situated next to. This, my friends, this is how they need to build charging stops. It was unfortunately not yet open for business, but inside you'll find a small cafe with plenty of seating both inside and outside. Really neat. Much better than a couple of charging stalls in the middle of some industrial part of town with nothing nearby. As you may be able to tell by the consumption, we did drive a bit fast getting here, but like I said, it's been a long day and I'm ready to finally arrive at a hotel. Which reminds me, I need to book a hotel first. Like on the previous nights being at my last charging stop, I'm going to find a decent place somewhere between here and my goal, in this case, the Nürburgring. So what I do is I check out some of the bigger cities en route and then use my booking.com app to find a good deal for a room. So far I've been able to book at some very favourable rates this way. I do realise this isn't an optimal way of travelling, But for me this weekend, not being able to predict neither traffic, charging stops, or what time I'd leave, or for how long I'd want to drive, this seemed like the best option. A good deal was quickly found, and roughly an hour later, we had once again arrived at our stay for the night. With it being Saturday, all hotels were a bit more pricey than the days earlier, but this seemed perfectly fine for a late arrival. Just a very regular type of hotel room, I suppose. A couple of gummy bears snacks laid out on the bedding, which I ate as an evening snack. And yeah, a perfectly fine room. In fact, I also slept the best here of all nights. But I suppose that's because I was absolutely knackered after a whole day behind the wheel. So yeah, let me jump to bed and I'll see you again tomorrow. I have to admit, I'm feeling a bit devastated. I had planned to visit the Nürburgring, but as you may already have seen, there is a heavy fog all over this entire area. Unfortunately, dense fog isn't exactly ideal for driving on a racetrack. Not only would it diminish the experience, but it would also make it difficult to capture quality footage to share with you all. As someone who has spent years playing racing sims, driving on the ring, this was really disheartening. The weather forecast predicted the fog to stay until late afternoon, and it just wouldn't be viable for me to wait this long. Such a bummer. Rather than going straight back home, I found a few slightly interesting pit stops to make instead. I figure I would then summarise the experience of having done this long journey, and how driving an electric car affected the trip. And as you can see, the dense fog is still very much an issue, even 3 hours later. As we're driving towards an old German castle from the Middle Ages, let's go through all the charging stops we've done to try and see how it all adds up. I made this overview with Google Sheets, tracking every stop I've made, together with time of arrival, state of charge, how long we charged, how much was added, as well as the cost. I hope this will be readable once it's exported and uploaded onto YouTube, but let's quickly go through it together. So for our total journey of 1,967 kilometres, we had made the following 11 stops at chargers. And yes, one of the stops in the Czech Republic didn't add any charge, but that was the stop with a queue and non-charging vehicles parked at the charging stalls, which made me drive to a different charger. Since I want to make this as transparent and honest as possible, I believe this also needs to be in the overview, as it still was 12 minutes of our time wasted. Now, what I found truly shocking after adding all this up was that I had spent a total of 5 hours at chargers in order to drive just nearly 2,000 kilometres. I mean, that is honestly insane when looking at the numbers like this. If I had been driving a petrol car, I'd probably only have needed to make 3 stops for filling up, each filling taking a maximum of 2 to 5 minutes. Even if I had made a couple of toilet stops along the way, it would just get nowhere near the 5-hour mark, not even half an hour. And now I know there's some of you that will say, but during a charging stop you can just spend your time wisely and have lunch or dinner. While in theory, yes you can. But honestly, I'd rather get to my destination 40 minutes quicker and enjoy a nice stress-free lunch at a cafe, rather than sitting in an overcrowded McDonald's or in a cramped-up car eating a cheeseburger. Now, before all of you lose your minds, I did also make an overview showing the difference if my hotels would have offered charging, and we could have charged the car to 100% before leaving. And as you can see here, it would have made a huge difference. Rather than having spent 5 hours charging, we would only have needed to top up a few times, with a total of 1.5 hours. Much more bearable. So I guess this is something that's really worth considering when you're booking your stays. Not only would you save a ton of time, but you'd also eliminate a lot of the stress associated with these stops. It's definitely something I will have to keep in mind for the future. The only thing that's quite unfortunate is that it's so far only a very small percentage of hotels that even offer charging. Even if they probably only have 1 or 2 chargers available, so charging won't be guaranteed either. This is perhaps one of the biggest and only downsides travelling electric. If you have any other ideas or experiences when going on longer journeys with an EV, please do share in the comments. Anyways, we've now arrived at the Wartburg Castle, but first we needed to climb 1,000 stairs to get up here. As I saw a group of youths complaining about going up the stairs at the very beginning, I decided to show off and do 2 steps at a time. I mean, how hard could it be? Turns out, it could actually be quite hard. I made good distance running up the first part, but my god, I was feeling it. Imagine if they catch me get my breath here. No way. I probably overestimated my cardio. My god, definitely not taking double steps anymore now. I was absolutely dying. What did I get myself into? And for no reason at all. F*** me, and I'm still not at the top yet. No kidding, my lungs were burning. Quick rest and enjoy the view. It is a shame about the fog though. Without it, the views from up here would be amazing. And we finally reached the top. Jesus Christ, what an idiotic thing to do. I was completely knackered, all because I was racing someone that didn't even know they were racing. Let's take a quick stroll through, now that we made it up here. Sitting proudly above the lush Thuringian forest in Germany, Wartburg Castle is a place full of incredible stories and amazing history. Built way back in 1067, it's seen a lot over the centuries. One of its coolest claims to fame is that Martin Luther stayed here in 1521. While hiding out, he translated the New Testament into German, making the Bible accessible to everyone and kicking off a major religious shift. But Luther isn't the only big name connected to Wartburg. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, known for her kindness and charity, lived here in the 1200s. You can still visit her beautifully decorated room, filled with murals that tell her story. There's also a bit of legend mixed in with history. Wartburg is said to have hosted the Sangerkrieg, a medieval battle of the bards, where poets competed in song. It's a tale that's inspired books and even operas. In 1999, the castle was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's easy to see why. Between the stunning views of the forest, the grand medieval architecture, and the chance to walk through rooms that changed history, Wartburg Castle is a must-visit for anyone who loves history, legends, or just a great day out. And not to brag, but those damn teenagers didn't reach the top until I was already on my way back down again. I must have beaten them by 14.5 minutes. Not that anyone is counting, of course. Enough with medieval adventures now. It's time for me to get back home. I suppose one thing I haven't mentioned at all so far is, how comfortable has the car been on this road trip? And you know what? It has been surprisingly pleasant. I haven't at any time wished I was driving a softer suspension or been in a different seat. For a quite firm sports sedan, this has been really impressively comfortable. There was even a day where I was in this car for almost 12 hours straight, and it really was completely fine. That's not to say that others wouldn't have complained. Everything is, of course, subjective. But in my experience, I would have no problem driving this car for days on end. Speaking of driving for days on end, how was our combined consumption for this entire trip? Well, let's have a look, now that we've finally arrived back home. And the result is 217 watt-hours per kilometre. While this number is a little high, it's important to note that for the last half of my trip, I did drive quite fast on the Autobahn. But to be fair, this trip wasn't about seeing how efficient it's possible to drive, but rather take you guys on a slightly epic road trip, while also documenting the experience of doing it with an EV. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little series. It sure was a lot of fun, for me at least. In my next video, I'm going to another quite epic place here in Germany. Not only was the drive over there amazing, but the place itself was also a hidden treasure. So make sure you're subscribed in case you want to join me on yet another one of these fun adventures. So yeah, thanks so much for sticking around till the end. And a quick reminder, if you're looking for a nice comfortable hoodie, we'd be thrilled if you checked out our website. All proceeds, of course, go directly into these videos, helping us a little bit to offset the cost of doing these small trips and the countless hours spent filming and editing. And it would, of course, be the coolest thing ever to meet someone at a random charging stop wearing a Fench hoodie. Free drinks on us. Cheers, guys.